You don't even enjoy scrolling anymore. That's the weird part. You open the app because you're tired, bored, stressed, or avoiding something. 10 minutes later, you feel worse, your task is still waiting, and somehow your finger is still moving. One more video, one more post, one more swipe. You are not learning anything. You are not having fun. You are not even relaxing. And yet you keep going. This video is not about discipline. It is about avoidance. Because most people think they scroll because the content is good. I think that explanation misses the point. If the content was really that good, you would feel better after consuming it. Most of the time you don't. You close the app feeling tired, distracted, slightly guilty, and often confused about where the last hour went. This strange thing is that many people no longer scroll because they love scrolling. They scroll because it helps them avoid something else. Think about when you usually reach for your phone. It is rarely when life is going great. You reach for it when you are bored, when a task feels difficult, when studying sounds painful, when work feels overwhelming, when you are lying in bed with your own thoughts, when you are lonely, when you are anxious, when you do not know what to do next. The phone appears in moments of discomfort, and that is not an accident. Scrolling is one of the fastest forms of escape ever invented. You do not have to make decisions. You do not have to take risks. You do not have to face uncertainty. You do not have to fail. You just move your thumb. The next thing appears automatically. And the next. And the next. Real life asks something from you. Scrolling does not. That is why it feels so attractive. Imagine two options. On one side, there is the assignment you have been avoiding for 3 days. On the other side, there is a feed that never asks anything from you. Which one feels easier? The answer is obvious, and your brain knows it. The problem is that easy and useful are not the same thing. Scrolling feels like relief. Real life feels like effort. So your brain starts making a simple trade. A little less discomfort now. A little more discomfort later. The problem is that later eventually arrives. The assignment is still there. The email is still unanswered. The exam is still approaching. The project is still unfinished. Nothing disappeared. It was only hidden for a while. That is why scrolling is different from entertainment. Entertainment usually has an ending. You watch a movie, it finishes, and you leave. Scrolling has no ending. The next thing is always waiting. And because there is no natural stopping point, you often leave only when something external interrupts you. Your battery dies. Someone calls you. You suddenly look at the clock, and that moment is always strange. You thought you were checking your phone for a few minutes. Now it is an hour later. Sometimes 2. The task is still waiting exactly where you left it. Except now you have less time. That is the painful contradiction. Scrolling promises relief, but it often creates the exact conditions that make you want to scroll again. You avoid the task. The task becomes more stressful. Stress makes you want relief. Relief means scrolling. Scrolling creates more delay. The delay creates more stress. The loop continues. And after a while, something changes. You stop scrolling because it is enjoyable. You start scrolling because stopping feels uncomfortable. That is the trap. At this point, many people already know scrolling is hurting them. That is not the problem. The problem is that knowledge by itself changes nothing. Everyone knows. We all know what happens when we open the app, and we know exactly where that hour is going to go. Everyone knows they will probably regret it. And then they do it anyway. Because the battle is not happening at the level of information. The battle is happening at the level of discomfort. When boredom appears, when anxiety appears, when loneliness appears, when silence appears, when uncertainty appears, the phone offers an exit, not a solution, an exit. And exits are hard to resist. especially when they are available 24 hours a day inside your pocket. This is why I do not think the solution is becoming a perfect monk. Most people already know that unrealistic advice does not work. Delete every app. Never touch your phone. Become disciplined forever. That sounds impressive. For about 3 days. Then real life happens. The real goal is smaller. The real goal is noticing the moment before the loop starts. The moment when you reach for the phone. Not because you want something, but because you want to avoid something. That moment matters. Because that is where the decision still exists. 5 minutes later, the feed is making decisions for you. But right before you open it, the choice is still yours. Maybe you are avoiding an email. Maybe you are avoiding studying. Maybe you are avoiding work. Maybe you are avoiding the uncomfortable feeling that comes from sitting alone with your thoughts. Whatever it is, the phone is usually not the real destination. It is the escape route, and once you see that, something becomes very difficult to ignore. The content was never the main character. The thing you were avoiding was. That is why the first step is not deleting your phone. The first step is asking a simple question. What am I trying not to feel right now? Sometimes the answer is boredom or stress. Sometimes it's loneliness or simply the discomfort of starting. And that last one is surprisingly common. Because starting requires effort. Scrolling does not. Starting requires attention. Scrolling does not. Starting creates the possibility of failure. Scrolling does not. That is why the phone keeps winning. Not because it is stronger than you, because it asks less from you. But there is a cost. Every minute spent escaping reality is a minute reality spent waiting. The task waits. The project waits. The conversation waits. Life waits. And eventually you reach a point where scrolling is no longer helping you avoid discomfort. It is creating it. That is usually the moment people start looking for answers. Not because they suddenly became productive, because they became exhausted. Exhausted from avoiding. Exhausted from delaying. Exhausted from watching days disappear into feeds they barely remember. And the strange thing is that the solution is often less dramatic than people expect. You do not need to become a different person. You do not need to transform your entire life overnight. You do not need to win every battle. You only need to interrupt the loop long enough for reality to continue. Put the phone down. Not forever. Just for a few minutes. Open the thing you were avoiding. Not the entire project. Just the first piece. Let the discomfort exist. Stop trying to immediately escape it. Because discomfort is usually temporary. The loop is what keeps making it permanent. And the moment you stop scrolling is the moment reality finally gets a chance to continue.